Hi guys, Irina here and welcome back to my channel where I review everything tech. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite pieces of tech, and this is the iPad Pro. I got it about a year ago, and in this video I want to take a look at this iPad from a practical point of view. I'll talk about the battery life, accessories I've been using. Some of them turned out to be great, but some of them were not so great. Also, we'll talk about some of the software updates, the overall performance, and so much more. So let's begin. First of all, this is the 11-inch iPad Pro in space gray, and during this year I've asked myself a couple of times, do I regret getting the 11-inch and not the 12.9-inch version? But the answer has always been no. This size is just perfect, at least for my needs, so zero regrets here. And I want to talk about this Magic Keyboard I've been using. Most of the time, I love it. It's very convenient if you type on your iPad a lot. This way, your iPad feels like a mini laptop. I've heard that some people find this keyboard inconvenient because the keys are located slightly closer to each other when compared to a regular keyboard. But at the same time, I know a lot of people, including me, who found this Magic Keyboard pretty comfortable in terms of typing. I like that you don't have to charge the Magic Keyboard, and also if your iPad battery is dying, you could use this port right on the Magic Keyboard to charge your iPad. So it's really nice that you have access to ports from both sides, so the charging would be convenient in any workspace, no matter which side your cables come from. The thing I don't like about this Magic Keyboard is that even though it acts as a case for your iPad, eventually I had to buy another regular case because some day-to-day activities just felt uncomfortable with this Magic Keyboard on all the time. For example, if you write with an Apple Pencil or draw on this iPad, it feels extremely inconvenient. Also, if you often use your iPad in the portrait orientation, this keyboard just always gets in the way. And when it got too uncomfortable, I just took the keyboard off, but honestly, I was always concerned about scratching the finish. So eventually I got this Apple Smart Folio case. It's kind of pricey, and honestly it took me some time to make up my mind, but I don't really buy new cases often, so I thought it would be good for at least a couple of years. Next, let's talk about the display of this iPad Pro, and honestly, I don't have any complaints about it. It's bright and vibrant, the colors look accurate, and yes, the 12.9-inch version has a more advanced display, but using this 11-inch iPad Pro for a year, I've never had a thought that this display is not good enough. A year ago, in my initial review of this iPad Pro, I mentioned that I decided to buy the glass screen protector from the same brand I was using with my older 2017 iPad Pro, since it was great. So, giving you an update here, so far this one has been no disappointment as well. It looks the same as on its first day, it hasn't peeled, it still looks great at the edges, so I can definitely recommend this brand again, and FYI, it's never been sponsored. Now I want to talk about the Face ID on this iPad Pro, and for some reason, sometimes I still struggle with the Face ID on my iPad. The thing is, I accidentally cover it with my hand when it's in a landscape orientation, so oftentimes I just have to use the passcode, and it's kinda annoying. I was even considering disabling the Face ID and the passcode, since mostly I use this iPad at home, but still I don't think this is the right thing to do in terms of security. My old iPad Pro had the home button, and I never had any problems with it. I have to admit, sometimes I kinda miss the home button. Speaking of the camera, we have a dual camera on this iPad Pro, including the main camera and the ultra-wide camera, and it's great. The quality of the photos and videos is really good, but the truth is, I almost never use the camera on my iPad. In the past year, I took took a few photos and videos to test the camera and maybe a few family shots. When it comes to photos, I usually transfer them from my phone or computer to edit them in Procreate. I still use the camera on this iPad to scan documents, but it doesn't happen that often. What I think is more important on the iPad is the front camera. iPad is very useful when it comes to Zoom or Skype calls. I take Spanish classes online and this iPad is just perfect for that. It's not as small as a phone, but at the same time, you could take it anywhere. We have a 12 megapixel front camera on this iPad. You could switch to wide angle and the angle is really wide. The video quality is pretty good, especially if the lighting around you is good, but I've tried it many times in poorly lit rooms and it was still good. Speaking of that tracking feature in FaceTime, honestly, I've never felt the need to use it. I think it's pretty cool, but it turned out to be not really useful for me. Now let's talk about the battery. Unfortunately, you can't see the battery health on an iPad like you could on other Apple devices, but in general, I would say the battery life feels pretty much the same as on its first day. Yes, it's been just a year, but sometimes you would be surprised how fast the battery depletes on some devices. Of course, the battery life depends on your usage. Sometimes this iPad lasts me up to 5 days if I just watch some videos or movies for a couple of hours every day, or I could drain this iPad within a day if I draw in Procreate or edit videos. Most of the time, I charge my iPad with this 20-watt charger that came in the box. Usually, it takes slightly longer than 2 hours to fully charge this iPad Pro, so I don't really have any complaints about the battery of this device. So far, so good. The thing I still appreciate about this iPad Pro is the speakers. There are 4 of them on this device and they are so loud. I've already mentioned in my previous videos that the speakers on my older 2017 iPad Pro were not the best in terms of volume. With this iPad, I rarely use these speakers at max volume, but if the audio in a video happens to be very quiet, now it's not a problem anymore. When it comes to overall performance, this iPad Pro can easily handle pretty much everything: video and photo editing, drawing, gaming. I've tried doing everything on this iPad and 1 year later it feels as snappy and fast as on its first day, which is not surprising to me at all since iPads have always been pretty good in the long run from my experience. In the past year, this iPad Pro got even better thanks to the iPad OS 15. Multitasking has become more convenient and versatile, the whole widget system got so much better, and I personally like the focus mode on my iPad Pro. Even though it's been a year since I got this iPad Pro, I'm surprised that this device still makes me feel as excited as I was on the first day I got it. If you have any doubts about getting this iPad Pro since it's quite expensive, first of all, ask yourself if you really need the Pro model. You could always go for the iPad Air and save some money, but of course, eventually it will depend on your needs since all the iPad users are different. That's all for this video, guys. Let me know which iPad model you're using now and if you're planning to upgrade. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.